In this video, we are going to be showing you how to navigate through mid-game. Now, this is specifically in the scope of balance. I will be talking a lot about pivots, and I will be talking about a concept called the dance, and we will work our way to the cash out. This is just part of a series which I am releasing called VGC Systems. It's the second one. Last time I did the team preview guide, so if you have not seen that, maybe watch that because you need to do team preview before you understand like theory like this, because that is a huge part of making sure you have the right tools is what team preview is about. Now, this is how to kind of use the tools. So this is more like a 202 lesson, build onto that. So how to play mid game, the dance. The thing about the dance is it's all focused on active positioning. So what that basically means is you are trying to bait the opponent into making an error. Now, it's actually way more common than you think in Pokemon. A lot of people think their opponent plays perfectly all the time. That's just not the case. The game is just really hard, and the opponents will eventually make a mistake. Now, the better player will oftentimes catch the opponent on that mistake. But point is, the what the dance is, it's using active positioning to allow your opponent to make an error. And that's pretty much what the dance is. Now, I mentioned stalling here. Stalling is waiting to lose very slowly. It's basically prolonging the inevitable. Maybe not the inevitable. It's just prolonging the board state just for a few more turns. There's a use case for it, which I'm about to get into right here. So the dance specifically refers to pivots. So a lot of people talk about Incineroar and how he likes to switch in and out. Now, the thing is, there's a strategy behind that. It's not just as simple as just, oh, just bring Incineroar because he's Incineroar. It's a little bit more complex, and that's what this presentation is going to hopefully teach you. But the main, in order to start out, the one thing I need to say is there are times where if you dance too much, it will feel like stalling. And that's just if you do not have a direction or a path you're going into. But there are times to dance. And the goal of a good dance is to get yourself into a better position for the next turn. Now, whenever I say dance, I mean cycling your pivot between clicking parting shot, hard switching, clicking fake out, creating the vortex, the mind game, where you just create a +1 up on your opponent. So, thing is, stalling can be good. It's good up against things such as Trick Room. It's good up against things such as Tailwind, Weather, Grassy Terrain, Psychic Terrain. There's times where you need to stall out the board and you need to kill some turns so you can do something active, because maybe it's not your window yet. But the way to actively position is to have an exit window from this dance. So I keep saying dance, and this concept might be a little bit, maybe you don't get it. I'm gonna go into more detail on this. But basically, whenever you dance, the goal of this is to create a headache state for your opponent. Okay, so you want them to be second guessing their options. And the goal is to have just like just a bunch of different options you can do. And you create this by creating a vortex like of just potential outcomes. You can stay in and click fake out, which is the basic play, right? If you lead Incineroar or if you lead a fake out user, you want to generally click fake out. And that's just like what kind of happens because you have it active. And then the opponent's basic play is to, oh, well, they have fake out, so I'm going to protect. But what if you hard swap into Rillaboom, delaying your fake out for the next turn? What if they switch out on your fake out because they're trying to call you out? They switch into their Urshifu Rapid Strikes and you call them out with a parting shot because you knew they were going to switch into it. The point is, positioning 101, it really is a matter of you getting the right Pokemon at the end of the turn. You have to focus on the end of the turn. And what like dancing really is in terms of pivoting, it's trying to get your opponent to make a mistake. Just if you remember the very first slide, I talked about trying to maximize the chance for an opponent error. And by having tools that allow you to dance with multiple pivots, such as Rillaboom, such as Amoonguss, such as Incineroar or Shifu, Pokemon that can go back and forth, it can really make the opponent second guess themselves. The basic goal is to have multiple impactful options at the same time. So if you can maybe have I'd say two viable options, your opponent oftentimes needs to hard commit to one, and then you pretty much don't need to commit to anything. All you have to do is just keep letting them just make a mistake. They will eventually make a mistake. And that's the goal of dancing is you wait for the opponent to make either a positional mistake or it's just it might be a playing mistake. Maybe they have inaccuracy. You bait them to make a mistake, and you want them to get in this state where they just start second guessing themselves, and that's the main thing. So, I kind of want to talk about the game of cat and mouse, which goes on behind this, right? So the thing is, if we're going to be playing this kind of like cycle, like back and forth sort of game, which a lot of VGC is this, a lot of formats like evolve into this kind of rapid back and forth game plan or like a like gameplay style. If we're going to be having this, it's going to create a bunch of micro 50-50s. Now, this is not macro play. So I must specify that. What I'm going on to here is micro play. This is just winning the turn. This does not win you the game. I'll go into a macro strategy by the end. That's the cash out. We're going to get there. I promise you. I promise you I'm leading you somewhere with this. I'm not just saying a bunch of random stuff. It's going to all make sense in the end. But for right now, the point of the dance is to identify those low risk, low reward plays, and you keep on sending those over and over and over again. So you never commit to an option. And there is a reason for this. We don't just spam low risk, low reward and always look for the low reward play. The goal is to find a low risk, high reward play. That is the Goldilocks zone. That's perfect. But in order to do that, we oftentimes need the opponent to make a mistake or we need to outposition them and just call them out and just keep the cycle going. Now, the basic way to play fire, water, grass is by very simply having your water type in front of their fire type, having your fire type in front of their grass type, and having your grass type in front of their water type. It's very simple if you just kind of break it down to that. But thing is, it's a cat and mouse game, okay? Let's say if you get caught out with Urshifu up against Incineroar, or other way around, you caught them out with your Urshifu up against their Incineroar, like in this example. You have two basic options. Option A is to click U-turn, expecting them to maybe switch out into their Rillaboom. And if you get it wrong, it kind of sucks, but you don't lose the game off of that. It's like, okay, they kind of called me out. I could have killed their Incin, but they called me to not kill them, so they stayed in, and I clicked U-turn. It was whatever. But you don't lose the game from clicking that. You get a reposition. They might parting shot you. Maybe you can go into something that can be immune to parting shots, such as Soundproof Pokemon or Golden Go, whatever. You can outplay them. But that is the safer option. Now, the riskier option is to go for a Surging Strikes. Now, why is it risky to click Surging Strikes into Incineroar? Well, simply put, in these Fire, Water, Grass mirrors where you're going back and forth over and over again, they can switch into their Rillaboom on your Surging Strikes. And the next turn, they're in the offensive position. And, that could be game losing depending on what their ally is. Now, this is all in a vacuum. It's just in a 1v1 situation. It's a game of just cat and mouse. You're trying to catch their Incineroar with your Urshifu. You're trying to catch their Urshifu with your Rillaboom, and you're trying to catch their Rillaboom with your Incineroar. And it just works like that. It's just like you try to just catch them and they try to catch you. Now, how you get out of these is by finding these low risk, low reward plays. You keep on going for these dances in the early game / mid game until you get to the cash out. Okay? So we're going to get into what the actual cash out is in the next one. But for right now, the main thing that you want to think about is before actually cashing out on any of your plays, before full sending any play, what we need to do is just go for simple jabs. We need to just simply just get the positional game. Respect that they could switch out into Rillaboom and call that out. Click U-turn into the Incineroar slot, or click U-turn into the Incineroar slot. It's like, don't allow them to get a free switch and get the positioning game. You're going like all these back and forths. Like I said, Urshifu is to catch Incineroar. Incineroar is to catch Rillaboom. Rillaboom is to catch Urshifu. And if you think you can get it, if you really think that's the turn that they're finally going to do it, you can full send it. And that really is the cat and mouse game, is that someone is inevitably going to break the rules. And it's all about if you can catch them. So the basic rules of Pokemon in the Incineroar versus Urshifu match is that they're going to switch out because you currently check them with Surging Strikes. Well, what if they finally decided they've had enough? They're like, you know what? I don't want to deal with this anymore. This like he's always clicked U-turn into me every single time. And I'm just going to just call him out to not to click U-turn this time. I'm going to stay in here. I'm going to click parting shot. That's whenever you catch them with the surging strikes. Now, I wish there was a science tell you when this happens, but every player acts differently, right? But generally, what I try to do in the early game is basically look to see if they have a safe switch. And if I'm in a good position, then I'm going to try to cash out. So a good position might look like they have a Rillaboom on the board and an Incineroar exposed, and I have my Incineroar and Urshifu on the board. The Rillaboom is -1, and I have Fake Out active, they don't. So I can Fake Out their Rillaboom, and I can Surging Strikes an Incin because their Grass type is currently on the board, so they don't really have a good way to resist the Surging Strikes. I try setting up positions like that, where it's like I look at their team, I'm like, what is their resist into my offense? What's the resist into Surging Strikes? What's the resist into Dragon Pulse? What's the resist into Icicle Crash? Whatever. Point is, it's all theory. It's trying to figure out what their resist is into your typing, and then you play this back and forth game trying to get them to use one of their resources in that moment. So if their resource is switching into Rillaboom on a Surging Strikes, and if that's their only resource for stopping a Surging Strike, if you catch it on the board in that moment, they cannot switch out of their other slot into that Pokemon. So you want to look to identify plays like that and try to catch them in those traps where like you dance to catch them in a trap. That's the main lesson here. So generally, the basic rule though, whenever you're kind of in these pivoting wars, is you want to try to pivot until you think the opponent's going to break the rules. Until you think they're finally, for the first time, going to be like, you know what, I just had enough of this. This guy's clicked U-turn every time. That's real, not Surging Strikes. Or like you're like, oh, their instance probably going to switch into their Urshifu, so I'm going to launch a Wood Hammer into that because it's like sometimes you just know it's like because if I kill this instant, they lose the game. So I'm going to go for a play and just kill their Urshifu as an example. But that's the goal of dancing: is you get your opponent into a mistake zone where you keep subtly just increasing the pressure. If you think of it like poker, like there's like poker strategies where like you do low bets until you start losing a bunch, and then you increase your bets. Basically, same logic with Pokemon. The more you kind of get these wrong, the more you're more likely to all in, or the more your opponent's more likely to all in. The more turns you get wrong, the more you're like, okay, I got to get some agency here. I'm like running behind. So all that was to say, you dance until you can cash out. So this is our intention. If you remember all the way back on slide 2, I talked about the intention where just needlessly stalling gives you nothing, but stalling with an intention gives you something. This is the macro part of this, is that you are dancing or stalling positioning, trying to get into a successful cash out. So what is the cash out? The cash out is a low risk, high reward play, meaning you can get a read wrong, but you are not out of the game. But if you get the read right, you win the game. And that is the Goldilocks zone. The point of cycling is to get into these positions. You don't just cycle to cycle. You cycle to try to set these up 2-3 turns in the future. You keep the +1 and you keep getting into their head like, hey, am I going to switch out or am I going to stay in? Am I going to click fake out? Am I not? And you wait until you catch the opponent whenever they're exposed. And that is the main lesson here, is you dance in the early game. You utilize the micro skill of dancing to get yourself into a cash out position. Once you're here, it's green light. Identify you're in that board. Think, if I click Icicle Crash here, what's the worst case that happens? I guess they have nothing that can really stop this. Maybe they switch in their Urshi so I can double tap that and Wood Hammer. You do this whenever you can get a guaranteed pin on the opponent, whenever you can punish them. Let's just say that they have no safe switch in because their current defensive options are on the board. Maybe you got rid of something in the early game, and now they don't have a safe switch into Surging Strikes. Cool. Well, now it's time to cash out. Get a quick KO. Maybe you stalled out their speed control. Maybe like if you were up against a Tailwind team, maybe you had to get rid of Tornadus, and then you stalled their Tailwind, and now you win because now Tailwind's expired. That was the only thing I had going for them. They're just caught out. What about if they just protected? That's another great example. If they just protected, you can oftentimes double tap them. That's a good way to punish them. What if they currently have their defensive Pokemon like on the board in this moment in time, and that's their only resist into like your super effective attack? That's another example. What if they can't stop a fake out plus Surging Strikes? The point is, you're trying to set up these green light boards where you just look at it, you're like, okay, that's what I needed. I needed them to click fake out on my Urshifu swap. Now I can go for a Surging Strikes, get a bunch of damage off anything that comes in. Like you are fishing for those opportunities to do that. That is the point of pivoting. That's the point of mid game, is to navigate to a point where you can eventually land just one key decisive strike. That's the point of all those tiny strikes. That's the point of clicking U-turn. That's the point of clicking parting shot, is so that you can set up those high reward, low risk boards. The point of positioning is just to eliminate defensive play. It's so you do not have to play defensively. The goal is to get into a position to where you can just double attack, full send 2 attacks. Just trade them, accept that they might get off an attack, but it's okay because now my position is finally better. If you can look at it and realize that you got your Chin Pao on the board up against an Incineroar and it's a range of Sacred Sword. If you can look at it, realize you got their Terra and now you have Chin Pao up against Landorus. That's great. You realize that you got their Rillaboom into range of Surging Strikes. Great. Now they cannot switch into their Urshifu. All that early investment finally did it. Now the game plays itself. Once you get in this board, if you can properly identify it, the game plays itself. Like before then, you have to kind of play the opponent a little bit, get in their head, go back and forth. But this is the first point where the game actually just plays itself. You just start dumping damage. You do not protect. You go for one decisive strike. So you do a setup in the early/mid game, and then finally get yourself into this position to where you can just get one key attack off that transitions you into late game. And that is exactly what this is. Ideally, we avoid going for protect reads, ones where we could protect one slot and attack with the other, because that's very volatile, because they can just punish you by just doubling your slot, which doesn't protect. Ideally, you get into a position to where you can just launch 2 attacks, you full send them, and you're like, hey, I set up for this position just so I can do these 2 attacks. I survived both your attacks because I parting shot at you. You could not intimidate me because your intimidate's on the board. Your Incineroar is exposed. Your terrain's exposed. Like your Rillaboom does not have terrain active. Your Urshifu is slower than both my guys, and I can kill him. That's like the goal, is you set up those cash out plays. So the point of the early/mid game is to navigate yourself into these cash out plays, and then if you can land one key cash out, then you oftentimes can win the game off of that. However, what about if stuff goes wrong? If you're just looking at it and you're like, I got that wrong. Maybe you Surging Strikes into an Urshifu swap, and then now they're on the offense. You're like, oh shoot, I did not think of that. Now we got to play risky. So if you whiff your cash out, if you try going for a key play from you danced, you kept dancing, you're like, okay, I think this is it. You cashed out, you did it too early, or you missed an attack, or it just goes wrong. You're like, oh my goodness, this is so bad. Well, now you're behind. Congratulations, you can no longer play positioning. You are now going for hard reads. It's always better to play for the 10% chance that maybe they miss, or maybe you get a 30% chance flinch. Maybe they mess up and you just hard call them to mess up. You are in recovery mode. You need to go for a hard read. If you lost your cash out where you spent all that time trying to set up for that one turn and you just whiffed it, you got to go for some hard reads. You are properly out of the positioning game. Now your game becomes I need to get in this guy's head. Because the whole point of the dance is to avoid getting to their head. You don't want to do this. This is stressful. This is stressful, by the way, guys, because it's not consistent. Because whenever you're playing the game and you have to go back and forth, think about what they're thinking of, really get in their head, sometimes you can get into a flow, but it is just so inconsistent. And the goal of this series, by the way, guys, is just to teach you consistency in the game. I'm not trying to make you guys the best player in the world. I'm trying to make you better than your friend. I'm trying to make you go positive at a regional, go to day 2, make top cut, whatever. You know, if you guys win with these fundamentals, congratulations. I do think you need fundamentals to win a regional. But anyways, though, point is, if you whiff your cash out, you have entered recovery mode. You need to start going for hard reads. Just start swinging left and right because you are going to lose unless you go for a crazy play. And that's a law of the game. It's if you get behind, you're going to lose unless you go for a crazy play. So at that point, just hard call them, go for something crazy. So to wrap everything up, basically, there are 4 primary stages in the mid game. The first one, and this is more of a balance mirror, like I said at the start, but the first one is the positioning game. Going back and forth, the objective is to create a headache, get your opponent confused. And while they're confused, you keep applying pressure. Keep the pressure going up and up. And you want to get them into the game of chicken or the game of cat and mouse, whatever you want to call it. And then you want to get them to eventually make one mistake. And once they make one mistake, you call it out. That's when you land your strike. So it's a setup hook play style. It's a build up, then cash out your chips play style. It's not a strike every turn because it's very inconsistent, but it is a position yourself to land a good strike, to get that high reward, low risk play. Then if you mess it up, well, start playing the best you can. Just go for a hard read, go for a hard call out, hard call them word like exactly what they're clicking. Don't play with your ego. Don't try to play into them. You're like, oh, I know he's clicking. If he wins, he should click this. There's no he should. What is he clicking? Just hard call him out every single turn, or whoever you're up against. Point is, hard call out your opponent, and that's pretty much it. Is you set yourself up to land a strike, and if it goes wrong, well, keep swinging. Don't stop, because if you get it wrong, you're gonna lose the game unless you start landing a strike. Cool. Homework, guys. This is applicable to everyone in the comment section on YouTube. If you are in the lab, which if you're watching this right now in the Day 2 Accelerator, Consistency Factory, all 7 of you, I will be reviewing over each one of your homeworks if you want to do this. I did submit in the homework thread a new post, so if you want to check that out, you can. Basically, watch your last 3 losses. It could be like just from sets. Like it could be, I guess you could do games, or it could be like your last 3 losses, your last 3 losses from various sets, ideally, and ask yourself, did I properly identify the cash out turn? Did I miss the window? Maybe I got myself into the position, but I didn't cash out on that turn. Or did I just get impatient and I didn't even get a chance to get to the window? Find 3 of your losses, ones where you felt like you maybe could have won, maybe in a back and forth pivoting game, and then you just randomly felt like you lost, but you couldn't quite identify when. That's the Goldilocks zone. And then try to identify that hash out zone, see if you missed the window or if you even gave yourself the opportunity to set up the window, and then send that over in the homework submission so I can check it out. All right, YouTube. Thank you everyone for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in episode 3. Peace.